Hey guys, Scott here. Today I wanted to talk about a video that Choi made a little over a week ago. I wanted to talk about it actually when he made it, but we had the Walking Dead stuff come out, and I think there were more important discussions to have then, so I put this on the back burner. But I did really want to address it because I see people referencing this for information and things like that, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of the information in this video is either misleading or inaccurate, and I wanted to offer some correction. Again, nothing against Choi. I like Choi. We've had many great discussions about this game, and although we disagree with a lot, we're completely on good terms. He wanted me as a joke to call him Infamous Liar Choi, and Choi, I'm sorry, I can't do it because I know that your audience doesn't like me, and I know they're going to think I'm actually trying to like instigate drama or something when it's obvious that we're joking around, but I just don't trust the internet. They're just going to think me and Mint Skull have drama, so I just, apparently no joking allowed. So I just wanted to go over this video. And the premise of the video, the title of the video, and the introduction to the video, we're all saying that 70% of matches have survived with friends. And if you guys have been watching me for a very long time, you probably know that I've been very staunchly against nerfing Survive with Friends. I've always been for buffing solo queue and then balancing the game around that rather than just, you can't punish people for playing with your friends. Killer queue is already 5-10 minutes right now. Imagine you penalize people for playing with their friends. The game would just die. So you really need to be careful with that kind of stuff. That's why I've always been very passionate about defending that topic. But the whole claim here, 70% of games have survived with friends. So I thought Choi had some information that I didn't have when I saw this. He's actually talked to hackers before that have used Fiddler to actually get information about MMR and stuff like that. Really cool information. And so I've liked his videos for getting the inside scoop on all that. But when I watch this video, there's no actual information. He kind of just makes this claim with zero supporting evidence. The only evidence we actually have was a graph from 2017, kind of right after Survive with Friends was added to the game, where they showed this distribution that showed that solo queue was only 30%. Again, this was right after Survive with Friends came out, so even then, it would be inherently biased to the fact that the mode is new and people wanted to try playing with their friends because it was a brand new mode. But that is the only piece of information we really have supporting any of this, and it's 8 years old. And if there's one thing I can agree with Choi on this video, it's that we would both very much like to see updated, accurate information for ratios of Survive with Friends and party size and things like that, match distribution, all that stuff. I would love to see that stuff. I just love numbers and data. I'm pretty sure he does too. So I think that would just be really nice to see for everyone involved. So one thing we can agree on and have, a handshake about, we would love to see more updated information. All that being said, to have an 8-year-old data set and pass that off as fact today is kind of ridiculous. And the problem with that is, in the video, he goes over that this information is 8 years old. He does actually mention that. He's not trying to pretend this is something that just happened. But the truth is, Choi, I'm sure you know, and anyone that has a YouTube channel, retention for videos is zero. People will look at the title of your video and then just, that's it. That's all they learn about the video. So people are just going to see that title and just assume, what the hell is going on here? People are just going to assume that that is truth without actually looking into anything involving the data supporting this fact. So that's the first problem I have. The title is an immediate claim that has no current supporting evidence whatsoever. So I think that is a problem, and a lot of people will just assume that that's true because people on YouTube have zero retention and will just not watch anything at all. So that's the first problem I have. He goes into another further point here and says that solo queue has become significantly more miserable for a huge chunk of the player base, and he uses that as a supporting fact for why more people might be pressured to play with friends. So that part, again, is just an assumption based on absolutely zero fact. A lot of this is just assumptions and assumptions and assumptions and presenting them as fact, which I really don't like, because there is no way you can tell that solo queue has gotten more miserable for a huge chunk of the player base. How can you prove that? If anything, I would argue the complete opposite with base kit borrowed time, base kit anti-face camp, base kit communication, base kit HUD, base kit anti-tunneling and slugging coming. Solo queue is, in my opinion, being made easier and easier and easier every patch. They're making solo queue better and better and better, so I don't know where the argument that it's getting worse and worse is coming from. It seems the complete opposite of the case, so I feel like this entire point is directly against what you're trying to say. If anything, this would make more people go to solo queue because it's been more bearable recently, especially with the go next prevention. People can't just abandon and make it 3v1s as easily anymore. It's even another reason solo queue has gotten easier, so I don't understand what he's trying to say with this point here, that the games have become more miserable in solo queue. Now, you might look at people complaining and say, oh my God, there's a lot of complaining about solo queue recently. And then you might try to twist that into, oh, well, that means recently solo queue's become harder. But it's like, dude, no, that's been happening for 9 years. You can go to any year in any discussion forum on the internet and find the exact same post. Killers are tunneling and slugging and camping nonstop. It's the exact same complaints that have been happening for the entirety of the game's existence. Hasn't gotten worse or better or anything like that. That's just people hate solo queue in general, but it is, I would dare say, objectively gotten more love and care than not, because just look at all the changes they've gotten in base kit features. I don't know how you can make that argument that solo queue has gotten harder, not easier. You would just have to be basing that off of just pure assumption at that point, or people currently complaining, but people have been complaining since the game came out. Nothing has changed there. So I thought that was a very weak point and actually served to hurt his argument, not help it. But let me get to the main crux of this whole thing here. So when people talk about Survive with Friends being very hard to go against, what are they talking about? They're talking about going against coordinated formats that have communication, they have coordination, they're essentially getting free information you can't normally get, they're getting free perks, they know when to go for saves, when to not go for saves, hey, stay on this gen, blah, 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 blah. Tell you where the killer is, all that good stuff. That's what people complain about. When people are complaining about Survive with Friends, it's about the really coordinated formats. Those are the challenges. Those are the games you remember as being difficult, and why you might think Survive with Friends is overpowered and stuff like that. Because, yeah, those matches can feel really, really rough. But the thing is, the way Choi is presenting this information by saying, let's just play devil's advocate and assume the 8-year-old data is correct, which it's not, but let's just assume it is. Still, according to that data, only 8% of people are actually in 4-mans. The rest are just like 1 or 2-mans and then some 3-mans. The vast majority of people are in 1 or 2-mans, like something like 70, almost 80% are 1 and 2-mans. No one is complaining about 2-mans. No one is complaining about Timmy and Sally in a group together. And in fact, he even shows in this video, duo queue actually has the lowest escape rate out of all, which makes sense because if you're playing with one friend, you might be way more altruistic to save that friend. You might go for more flashlight saves. You might trade at endgame when normally you might just leave instead. So the escape rate is actually lower. You're more likely to win as killer against a duo than just solo queue players. So to include duo queue in your group, which would technically, actually no, it wouldn't make you technically correct, because playing with one other person is not even Survive with Friends. It's Survive with Friend, which again, no one is complaining about you playing with one other person. If you were a killer and you were legitimately claiming the only reason you lost is because one guy was playing with his friend, you are huffing the good shit, my friend. You are not losing because of that. There are plenty other legitimate reasons you've lost. Some perks are not fair. Some maps are ridiculously unfair. There's plenty of reasons you can legitimately lose. But my whole point is, that's not because you got going against a guy playing with one other friend. So to word this whole argument that 70% of matches have Survived with Friends, when everyone associates Survive with Friends as, the 3 or 4-man groups that are actually difficult to go against, you can see how that comes across as extremely disingenuous, because he is technically, according to very outdated data, correct that people, 70% of the time are in a solo or in a group, which means that... No, I'm actually going back to that. It's not correct. It's just straight up wrong. Because again, he said Survive with Friends and not friend. So, never mind. I'm just going back on that. The only thing you actually really have to worry about are the 4-mans, occasionally a 3-man. But again, those are just the minority. Those are by far the smallest group and demographic of what you're going to be going against. And the weirdest part is, like, in his comment section, his viewers fucking hate me. His audience tends to skew extremely killer-sided, and so when I offer survivor-sided takes, they get very upset. So his audience absolutely fucking hates me. Again, I'm totally cool with Choi, and we can both laugh about how incredibly aggressive audiences are. But, his audience is very upset, and they were like kind of wording things like, oh yeah, this video is going to really put a wrench in Scott's narrative or something like that. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never under any circumstances said that, 10% of your matches are like, the only thing I've ever said was based off of that one doctor image where it said like 51% of parties are solo queue. So I was like, oh, okay, 51% of matches are solo queue. That's it. That's the only thing I've said. I don't think I've repeated that in the past like 4 years because truthfully, we've just had no updated information. So I'm not claiming anything as fact anymore. I think what's happening is his audience is somehow conflating me saying that a very small portion of your games are, the SEAL Team 6, the 4-mans that you really are going to struggle against. They're somehow conflating that with me saying that a tiny portion of games have friends in them or something like that, which are entirely different things. I have never said a small portion of your games will have a survive with friends in them. That I've never said that. I've just repeatedly said that it's a very small portion that have these teams that are true threats, the true 4-mans that you got to worry about. So I guess they're somehow conflating those two things together or something, because I don't know how the video is supposed to be a gotcha against me. Not only is it just wrong, but it also doesn't even disagree with what I'm saying. 8.5% on the actual graph. Those are the actual 4-mans, and even only a portion of those are going to be on communication, talking to each other, and giving themselves an advantage. And even only a portion of those are actually going to be good players that you are really going to struggle with. It's like an if, and then an if, and then, okay, here's the 1%er matches where it is a 4-man. They are all good at the game, and they're all communicating. Those matches are tough. Those matches can make the game seem extremely survivor-sided depending on the killer that you're playing, and I understand the frustration there. The whole argument I always make to these people, I think, that are huffing a little bit of copium, is that those matches, those really hard 4-mans with communication, stuff like that, those are, even according to these statistics, less than 1 in 10 of your games if we assume every 4-man is a SEAL Team 6, which they're not. Even according to that, it's still, statistically, with the outdated information, still the vast minority of the matches that you go against. And that's why I'm so staunchly against nerfing Survive with Friends. That's the main point I want to get at here. No one's complaining about 2 people playing together or 2 groups of 2 or anything like that. It's just the 4-mans that people find trouble going against. And to include that in a discussion about Survive with Friends, I found very, very misleading because we know those are not the same thing. So I already see people repeating the stats that weren't even really provided in this video, saying that 70% of all matches are, 4-mans. They're just extrapolating their own narrative now based on inaccurate data, and I find that to be kind of annoying. So I wanted to clarify some things here just to make sure everyone's on the same page here. Final summarization: the data, completely wrong, completely outdated, but even if it was accurate, it's still including 2-mans as if that was the thing we're talking about, which it's not. If we do include the thing people are really talking about, the super sweaty 4-mans, that is less than 1 out of 10 of your games. So that's the main thing I wanted to clarify. Other than that, thanks for watching. See you next time.